All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do a quick review lesson on story elements. So, story elements. Here's my famous bubbles. Okay, so let's just review these. I know that you guys have been doing these for years. First thing that you notice, especially at the beginning of a story, are the characters, right? Okay. Who are they? What are they? Sometimes they're animals, sometimes they are not. If they are an animal, it's probably noteworthy enough to mention that. Ooh, wow, this goes off the page, so I've got a little bit smaller space here. So just so that I remember where that is, because I'm learning. Okay. All right, then things that you want to keep in mind about with characters are their traits. All right, character traits. If you guys can remember what those are, this is how would you describe this character as a person, or what type of character you have. So for example, you've got Percy Jackson that you guys are listening to. Some character traits that I would maybe list for him would be that he is a bit lonely for his mom and living with her again. He doesn't have very many friends. He feels like a troublemaker because all sorts of things happen around him and have always happened around him, and he doesn't understand them. So those are just some, maybe about some character traits that I would say about him at this point in the story. I'd also say at this point in the story, he is not self-confident. Okay, doesn't believe a whole lot in himself, talks down to himself quite a bit. So those are some examples of traits. So when you think of characters, oh, and the big thing, names. Okay, you got to remember, who are these characters? What are their names? All right, so that's the first story element. Second story element, setting. Okay, this is where the story takes place and when. Now, sometimes when you're talking about when, you can only tell that it's either the past, the present, or the future. However, in this story, especially if you read the last slide of the last page, you will find out that this story that we are reading about in the Lotus Seed actually starts out, the setting is in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And we know that the Vietnam War was ending and in the 1970s. So you can even tell based on what's happening if it is a historical fiction book, which this is, where and when a story is taking place. So we've got setting, we have the plot, okay, and that means beginning, right, the middle, and the end of a story, okay, and you are going to be introduced. Oftentimes they talk about plot in terms of like a roller coaster ride or a pyramid, where you have the opening action, where you have the characters introduced, setting introduced, then you start getting into what they call rising action. Okay, and this is when you usually can find out where the problem in the story is. Then you have the climax, which is right here at the top, just like a roller coaster, most exciting part of the story. And it's, you know, what do you want? What's going to happen next? Okay. And then you have what they call, so this is exciting part of the story. Then you have what they call falling action. And this is going to be as the story is, as the problem is being solved. What's happening? So this is kind of what's going on because of this problem. What's the most exciting thing that happens because of this problem? Then this falling action is as this problem is being solved. And then you have at the end, you have what they call the conclusion. And that is also known as the resolution or solution to the story. It's got all sorts of synonyms for it. And this is ultimately how the story is resolved. How does it end? So then we also have been talking about point of view. I call that POV or point of view. You have first person, where the character in the story itself is telling the story. And so you're going to see words like I, my, we, ours. Okay. Then if it's third person, those are the two that we really focus on in fourth grade. Third person, then that is being told by an outsider, and they call it, you know, somebody who's outside the story, and they are going to say he, she, they, them, etc. Okay, the narrator of the story is going to say that. The narrator of the story in a first-person story is going to use I, my, we, ours, and really let us know that they are telling the story from their point of view. And then the last element that we talk about in fourth grade is theme. Okay? And this is what the enduring message or understanding from your characters' trials, from their problems. What have they learned? And it's you as a reader taking what you know about what they have learned, maybe how these characters have changed and developed, and coming away with a better understanding of what is maybe good behavior, what is bad behavior, what are some things that you need to keep in mind. So theme, you can also think about it as the learning or the lesson. You, as a reader, walk away from the story because of the characters' changes from the beginning to the end of the story. Okay? So that is just a really quick review of the 5 elements. We've got characters, we've got setting, we've got plot, we've got point of view, and we've got theme. And I will take a quick picture of this and post this as well, so that as you guys are taking note and reading, not only the Lotus Seed, but also listening to Percy Jackson, you can keep all of these things in mind because they will help you write a good summary.